phase out the system, empower yourself, grow food at home.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Grow Food at Home podcast, episode 9. I'm your host, Jack Sandquist, and today we're going to be discussing sustainability, creating sustainable systems. So if you're a listener to this podcast already, you might already know our principles. But if you're just joining us, I'm gonna repeat them because this is kind of what we stand by. And that is, number 1, plant daily. 2, support sustainable systems. That's what we're gonna be talking about today. Number 3, school yourself. 4, be solution oriented. And number 5, bring the good vibrations. And I think these principles kind of sum up how I try to go about living my day to day in order to live an abundant, sustainable lifestyle. And last episode, we kind of discussed abundance. And this episode, I'm trying to talk about sustainability because both of those things are important to optimize our lives. And sustainability is a big one. Because, if you're tuning in, you might already be well aware. If you even have any brain at all and you live in 2020, you know that we're kind of being crazy destructive and our systems are just not sustainable. Almost every single system, and especially the food system. So I really want to go here today. The principle is support sustainable systems. I really want to push you guys even further and talk about creating sustainable systems. Because yes, we know, buy local produce, buy local fish, buy local, whatever, duck meat, whatever you're into, buy local chicken eggs. If you're in Florida, utilize coconuts. They're all over the place. My point is, localize your food, wild, forage, for mushrooms, for, edible weeds. All of that's I'm all about. I try to live. Today we had, my girlfriend and I had local mahi I got from a client. And, as many meals as you can, try to eat locally. But what I also think is important, is creating systems that can encourage more sustainability. For example, start an edible landscaping company, or start a garden and then slowly build towards a CSA program that you could provide food for other people. So not just put your money towards systems that are sustainable, also create sustainable systems yourself, and I'll get into those. So just one example is, plant more edible plants, but also maybe if you're a carpenter, right now I've really noticed people really want to start being as sustainable as possible because the whole grocery stores being empty thing a couple weeks back freaked people out. And I think we're realizing how fragile the system is and how interdependent our world is. And if we're not getting goods from China, then that's not good for us. And so people are really I can't tell you how many clients I've built gardens for in the last couple of weeks who are like, what about chicken coops? Can I have a chicken coop? People are hungry for sustainable systems, man. So I want to encourage you guys maybe to create it yourself. If you're a carpenter and you're not getting work for whatever reason, they're shutting down the office building you're working in or whatever, put it out there. Be like, hey, does anyone want a chicken coop? I could help you design one. Boom. I think about how much food we consume every day. Millions of people in South Florida. How much food we consume. And how little farmers and how little of it actually comes from this peninsula, and how it needs to change quick. We really need to make a bunch of small, conscious farmers, all over Palm Beach County if we really want to make a difference. So not only not only put your money towards local farmers, become one. Start building chicken coops. Maybe start like a composting operation. Like I know some people who they collect compost from people who can't like compost in Abacoa, in their like HOA community. So they pay someone to pick it up, like a compost business. They pick up all the compost and then they feed it to worms at like a headquarters where they feed worms, and then those worms eat the compost, right? And then they make worm castings, vermicompost, really, really good soil for people to grow food in. So it's an amazing system. So instead of people throwing this food out and throwing it into the trash can and creating more, methane emissions and just not a sustainable system, right? Like using our tax money to pick up all this stuff and then drop it off at some hill at the edge of town to burn holes in the ozone layer. That's not a sustainable system, right? But we could instead use that, put on this new compost worker in town, right? Who's like a local business and stuff, and then feed it to worms and then make good soil. So that's one right there. Build chicken coops, start a vermicompost business. What about like rabbits, dude? I think about how many people, like not everyone's a vegan, right? Like people eat meat. We need like there's so many wild boars in Florida. We need to source our meat much better. Like that's for sure. What about having a rabbit operation? I saw Joel Salatin he has this big barn filled with rabbits, and he says they're so lucrative. Like you could really, because they, the whole like saying like they breed like rabbits. Like rabbits multiply quickly, so you could get a lot of meat from that. And then the rabbit poop is actually like insanely good for like your garden. It's one of the only manures you could just add right into the garden, and you don't need to compost it down and get a lot of those that bacteria out of there. So yeah, like just give me some ideas. So like what I'm trying to say, like what about building compost toilets? Like there's all these like super like trendy places. Like it's hard to get there right now because no one's traveling, but there's all these B&Bs and hostels and stuff that have composting toilets, and they're sustainable spots that people like love to go to because they're intentional about their waste. And people should start building compost toilets. Like what I'm saying is, I think this coronavirus is really making us realize how deep we are into being dependent on toilet paper or whatever that we need to feel so safe and comfortable. But meanwhile, that we have the technology to like be safe and comfortable, but with sustainable technologies. It's all there. We just got to roll it out. So yeah. So I'm a big proponent of living sustainably, and I hope you guys are too. So that's really what I was just trying to talk to you guys about today. Like, what kind of world do you want to live in, 10 years down the line? Do we want to just like give into this whole like just being dependent on Amazon Instacart or whatever the hell it is, like, or do we want to empower ourselves and really like be able to teach our next generation, like, hey, like we could really like grow our own, man, and get them stoked on it, and not be fearful of Whole Foods not having whatever the hell vegan pizzas in stock. Like, what kind of world do you want to live in? Like, really, like, and then start living in that world, right? We have to envision where we like how we want to live, and then just start living that way in our own personal lives. That's what I did. Like when I dropped out of school and like started working on farms, I thought about, all right, how do I want to live? Like I got super intentional about the lifestyle I wanted. I'm like, oh, I want to live more simply. I want to learn hands-on. I want to be more immersed in nature. It's like, boom. So I just went and did that. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I wish the world was like that. I also was like that a little bit. But I just made it happen in my own, reality, right? Like, start living in that dimension. So what kind of world do you want to live in? I would invite you guys to ask yourself that. And hey, much love. Until next time, my friends, let's create abundance together.